This is the Sumo Deadlift. What you want to do is have a wider stance, so your feet are going to be wide and your hands are going to be on the inside. It's good to start with both hands face down. When you get to the heavier weights, you can alternate one hand up and one hand down. You want to make sure you vary which hand is up and down so you don't get a muscle imbalance. So you take your wide stance. You want your feet, like the shoelace part, to be under the bar. And then you're going to sit back, and as I squat down, I'm going to keep my head and my spine in a straight line. So I'm not like looking down, and I don't need to look up as I go. I can just kind of let my spine and my neck move in the same plane. So I sit back, and I look down to make sure my hands are even, so I don't have one hand like in the center, one hand off to the right or whatever. But then from there, I get everything straight, and then I pick it up, and then you put it back down. Now, when you're lifting, there's two different motions. So there's getting it up off the ground and then standing up. So it's not just exploding from the ground. That's how people hurt themselves. You're going to go up and then up and put it back down. Again, from here, I'm looking just kind of straight ahead, like how my spine is lined up. What a lot of people will do is they end up not getting their hips low, so it's this. And then even worse if their back is rounded. So what you want to do is to have the wide stance and make sure it's kind of sitting. So reach down, make sure your hands are centered, get it up off the ground, and then stand up. So for the lunge, you can just do it on the floor, but what I like to do it is to just have my foot up on an aerobic step, and then that way it's going to focus more on the lower part of the leg instead of up here, so your thighs aren't going to chafe. So you put one foot up and then kind of hop back, and you just kind of go from there to figure out the distance between your legs. If you feel like your legs are kind of jammed up, your leg's probably not far enough back, so it's like this, and I feel like I can't go any lower, I'd want to try putting my leg further back. And my weight is balanced between both legs, and then from there it's just kind of bringing this knee down. This knee does bend. It doesn't need to touch the ground, but it's just getting close. There's still space there, and when this starts to feel easy, you can progress with holding dumbbells. And then the other thing is to make sure that your back foot is straight instead of turned out to a side. Just down like that. So for the shoulder press, if you can find a chair that's already set up for being straight vertical, then that's fine. Otherwise, I've found if you have this vertical, it doesn't really work. It kind of gets in the way. So what I like is to go one back from there, and then you just grab your weight. So from there, to get it in position, what you want to do is kind of be sitting into it, but you use your knee to kind of kick the weight up into position, and you want to make sure that your elbow is, instead of in front of you, it's like back by the side of your body, the side of your head. So with both legs, it's kind of push the weights up into position, and I want to get my shoulders like down and back, so there's a little bit of arch, but it's still overhead. And you don't need to worry about like clacking the weights together or anything. Just go straight up and down till your elbows are at about 90 or just a little bit below. And exhale on the way up. So for the lateral raise, the main thing is to hold weight, and you want to make sure that your elbow goes about as high as your wrist. So as you go, you want to make sure that, some people talk about like, you want to think about like pouring a pitcher, like if you had a pitcher of beer or water or whatever. What some people do when they try to have too much weight is their hands are up here above where their elbows are, and that's not going to hit the lateral head of the shoulder. So, and I like the athletic stance a little bit just to kind of get braced, and then that tilting forward just a hair helps hit the shoulder more. So then just nice and controlled up. See, my hands are turned out, and my elbows, you don't need to have them locked straight out. You can have a little bit of bend in there. What? And then what you can do to try to make sure you're feeling the muscle is to just move your arm out a little bit and try to just use that muscle. And then from there go up, down, and back up. Do like a 1.5 rep thing, and that helps make sure you're isolating the lateral deltoid. So again, just move it out just a hair with just that muscle, and then up, down halfway, and back up for half rep. The two main ab exercises are the leg raise and the plank. And you can progress from there, but just to start, what you want to do is, and most people find it good to put the hands under the back so it doesn't strain the low back. And you want to try to get your heels off the ground, keep your feet elevated, and then controlled, go up. You can keep your legs as straight as you can, so if you need to have them bent to make it easier, that's fine. And just work up to having your legs extended more. So up and down. There's another version where they'll start out here and just bring their knees in. Do that. Get a little bit of a crunch motion. And then for the plank, again, the basic version is just to be on your forearms. And the big thing is just to make sure your back is not arched or your butt's too high. So a good way to learn is to, they call it the hollow body hold. So you have your arms above your head, and then you bring your hands and feet up until your back is flat, and then you just kind of hold that. And that feeling in your abs is what you want to memorize, and then translate that to when you're doing the plank. So that same kind of hollow body hold. And once the basic plank gets easy, you can do stuff like bring up on your hands, or start to do one leg and one hand, or elevate your feet, or put your hands on a ball, or however hard you want to make it. And then for the side plank, it's the same kind of thing. Like you can start here, start hand on the hip or wherever it's comfortable. You can come up onto your hand, or elevate a leg, or all four. So the basic version of the hip range, you don't need a weight. You just lay down. It's important to have your toes up off the ground, so that way you're actually going to focus on the glutes. And then all you need to do is just make sure your pelvis is straight, and then just kind of get your hips up in the air. You can take your hands off the ground to make it harder. And then it's a big jump, but it is a progression to go for just one leg and then alternate. But and what the program says is to just do like a hold, but it's a lot better in my opinion to use some kind of resistance. So what we're going to do is the weighted hip thrust. So I used a yoga mat just because it's what's here. You can also use the shoulder pad to put over the bar so it doesn't hurt your hips. And you can do this like on the floor, or you can have your back on a bench, which is just two different variations. They both work. So you want to get this set up, lay down, plant your feet again, toes up, and then just nice and controlled, go up. And I'm a little off center here, so try to slide it up. Try to hold it at the top for a second to get that extra contraction. And it doesn't make that big of a difference if your head is down or up. It's kind of more what's comfortable. So for incline bench press, it kind of depends on the setup you have. I've actually found the best results with like the lowest incline, like one setting above flat, but you can go up to like a 45 degrees, so somewhere like 35, 45 degrees is what the general recommendations are. So for now, we'll just go with this. So same kind of setup. You're gonna use your momentum and your knees to kick the weights up into position. You want to start with the weights up here, not resting on your chest, because you can keep your shoulders in a good position if you start with them up here. And then you want to have your hands, the weight is going to be like by the nipple line on your chest, and then from there you just go straight up. My elbows they're not like next to my body, they're not out here, they're at like a 45 degree or so. And then I just push up and above my chest. And then to get the weights down, what I like to do is just bring my elbows like on my ribs and kind of bring my knees together. Bring my knees up to meet the weights. Bring them down safely. Alright, so this is similar to like the bar lat pull down, but again, this is just what we got here. So you want to set up your weight, stand. I like to grab, typically there's going to be like a little bit of bend in the bar, and I grab like right towards the bend, so it's a little bit wider than shoulder width with your hands. So for this, grab the weight, sit, get your knees under the pad. Again, have your shoulders kind of down back in position, and then from there, you're gonna pull it. And see how my back is kind of arched, so I want to make sure that I'm not just pulling it down in front of me like a lot of people do. I want to make sure I'm arched back and pulling to. I'm going to be pulling to like upper chest when I'm pulling it down. And that applies to the bar or the cables here. So a few more with this. So this isn't the ideal setup for the cable row, but you'll just have to see what kind of machines are available. Typically it's going to be like a handle in front of a weight stack, and it's going to be paired with a lat pull down thing, which we'll get to. So you want to get your feet set up, planted. You want to have your shoulders in the socket, not pulled forward when you start. And then from there, it's just kind of using your back and your arms to kind of pull the weight. So you want to think about just pinching your shoulder blades together behind you. And then as you go forward, again, don't let your shoulders get pulled out of position. So keep everything tight, pull. And again, momentum is fine. You just want to make sure that your shoulders don't go forward out of position. This one's similar, but it's going to hit, instead of the outside of the shoulder, it's going to hit the rear delt of the shoulder. So getting into a stance similar to the deadlift, you're going to just have your dumbbells down here and go out like you're trying to take off in an airplane or something. And then for an extra challenge, you can try just holding it out there for a second. And you just, you can do a little bit of back sway, like as you come up. You just want to try to minimize it. So for the goblet squat, it's a little tricky again, how to get the weight up into place. So what you'd want to do is hold it, bring your knee up, and swing the weight up onto your thigh. Get under it with this kind of grip, and then get into your squat stance so your feet are about shoulder width apart. You want to try to have them pointed straight, and then from there, you stay upright, and the weight's going to help you with that. And I'll turn sideways for a few reps too. And you also want to make sure that your knees are kind of pushing outwards as you go, so your knees don't collapse. And then you just go down to about 90, or till your elbows hit your knees, or however low you feel like you can go. side. Again, it's important to keep my back straight as I go. This is the step up. What you want to do is try to set it up so your knees at about 90 degrees. And then what you want to do is to focus that you want to minimize how much this leg is pushing up off the ground. So try to focus your weight on your other leg. And what some people do is even like put a plate or something so their heel is kind of up. And then from there it's mostly just the other leg doing the work. So you can compare that to if I'm just kind of pushing up with my bottom leg. I'm not feeling it. So you should be feeling it a lot in the leg that's up in the glute. And you can hold dumbbells with this when you get to that point. So this is the dumbbell curl. What you want to do is just kind of get into an athletic stance. You're just kind of braced. So I like having my knees bent and my abs kind of braced, and then from there you can do either your hands like this way. So it's called the hammer curl. Your forearms are going to get more work. The other thing you can do is turn your palm out. So it just looks like that. And as you're going, as you get into the heavier weights, I'm on the side of the opinion where I'm fine if you want to use a little bit of momentum to help get the weight up. As long as it helps you handle a heavier weight, that's going to help your muscles more. So for the push down, you'll have to find some kind of cable machine. This rope thing is pretty common, so that might be your best bet to look for. There might be other different handles, so you might just have to unchain them and hook up the rope one. So the way I like to do it is kind of pull it down into position and then kind of lean forward close to the weight. Some people are too far back and they kind of pull into their own hips. So what I want to do is get my elbows down in position by my sides, and then my elbows aren't really going to move as I push it straight down and then come back up. So I don't need to come back up here. I just from here, just bending at the elbow to extend. And also, most people get a little better squeeze or whatever if they separate their hands at the bottom. So that's something else to look out for.